Speaking of Jordan Peterson, apparently he's going to be on Malice, Michael Malice here very soon.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty
Wow.
spiffy. That'd be a good
That should be pretty
conversation.
fun.
Someone reached out to, I was scrolling Twitter and I saw someone reached out to Vin and asked Vin if he'd ever talked to Malice, and he said no. That'd be another
Hmm.
very interesting conversation.
That would be a very interesting conversation.
You know what else would be a very interesting conversation?
There's a couple.
Vin Armani
What are
on
you
King
thinking?
Pilled.
That would be very interesting.
That would be. I think that would be a pretty fascinating conversation. We should see about making that happen.
Yeah, I think so.
It's already going to happen, people. It will happen.
I had an interesting phone conversation with him.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of.
You're
Yeah,
you're
very
the type
easy-
of guy that
very
just
easy to
chats on the
talk to.
phone with Vin Armani.
Well, I just two men of similar ilk exchanging ideas, and they're very similar sort of worldly experiences. He has his path, I have my path. Comparing notes, and wow, Steven, that sounds exciting. Then we only have so much time. Let's not.
Don't need to spend the whole time talking about me and all the
Yeah,
wonderful,
come on.
amazing
Yeah.
things I've
Enough
done.
about me, Vin. Yeah.
Have you done anything interesting? Like, Vin, have you been, you lived in Vegas or anything like that?
Yeah, it was so interesting. My life is just yeah. If we start talking now, I mean, really, the fans will just. I'll be getting even more action on Twitter than I already get, which is more than I want.
Everyone's tired of hearing about how amazing your life is.
Yeah, it's like we really just got to slow down with that and just kind of. If I start talking about my life, people are just going to feel, sort of deflated, and that's not what we need right now.
We want them to compare themselves to a bunch of losers, not someone as wildly successful as you.
Right. Yeah. You can hear all about my part-time work at Best Buy. Yeah. Fun fact: you think that when Stapleton's talking about these various libertarian characters, it's all just sort of loosely based off of my actual life. These these sort of powerless. You think they're hypothetical characters? They're not. It's all based off of my background.
All he's doing is just describing Steven's life.
I wrote Jason like a fan email, just years ago, and I sort of described, where I was coming from. He never wrote me back, but I just noticed that he just basically used my email to trash again what people think are, some hypothetical person, but it is my life. You hear Jason talking about someone working part-time at Best Buy and just what a loser he is or whatever. It's all based off yours truly.
What's up, John? How's it going, man? Amy said that your mom is an interesting conversation. What's interesting is that your mom is an interesting conversation.
Was that a burn or was
it was supposed to be a burn? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep. But she is, to be fair.
Mama Messina, would you call her based mom?
Yeah. It was like I don't know who else got a copy of the Machiavellians for Easter, but I did. Yeah.
Oh, she got it for you. I thought you got it for her.
No, she got it for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Go based mom.
I'm not certain, like what she knows about it, or I think she's just said this is just the book you two are always babbling about. So here you go.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Mama Messina is a badass.
Mm-hmm. She's very. The latest news with Mama Messina, she's very, she's very keen on the idea that she might be a political dissident.
Yeah, she likes that.
Yeah, because she referred to herself as being in the viewpoint of like her people that she knows as being like more conservative. I said, well, you're really not a conservative. She had just gotten done just like trashing Trump and how he shouldn't be talking because he's not in office anymore and he's just a self-interested hypocrite like the rest of them. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, Mom. I don't think you're a conservative per se. She's been telling me my entire life that they're all crooked, but it's just sort of like a by default thing, just using the wording, conservative. But I think she just, I don't know. She's sort of just like an intuitive Yarvin. The more I look at it, I mean, really, what she's been saying is sort of just like a pedestrian version of a mix of the Machiavellians and Yarvin's writing, just sort of without all like the history behind it. just a very stripped down bottom line version.
I don't know.
But yeah, they're all crooked, and just like just I remember in a lot of things growing up, just kind of like I think her line was, you can't fight City Hall or whatever, which is basically, you're in a system, and it was, as I grew up, was this, with the IRS, just like, yeah, they're going to give you, you're going to get letters. They're going to tell you owe something. Right. And then, unless you have some amazing proof that you don't owe it, basically, you're going to get shook down. And it's just, this is the game. Like, this is it. But I also remember growing up being very young, and, there's this idea out there that, like in Black families, you get the kid ready for school, and, the parents have to tell them, that you have to, do your homework, everything else in life, but, also be careful because the cops are trying to kill you. And that was not the experience in white households. And let me tell you, they didn't grow up in my household. Maybe debatable if you want. I don't know. It's debatable if you want to call it a white household per se. But whatever you think about me in my household. Ooh, boy, at a very young age, wasn't explained to me that most cops are assholes. And in fact, this is like 90s or whatever. They absolutely are looking for an excuse to use their firearms. Like in like you in your mouth, you'd be good as choice as any. So you got to keep your hands where they can be seen. If you get stopped, you shut up. Yes, sir, no. And it was just a very, very utilitarian way of existing. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny, the Italians, because your background's Italian, right?
I mean, Sicilian, so worse.
Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. The Italians of Italy. They
That's pretty funny.
That's like this whole concept. We got to be careful here to try to keep ourselves on YouTube. We've already had one video deleted, so we have to dance around things carefully. We are
stampeding towards that 1,000 number, right? I mean, we're almost a third of the way there, aren't we?
Yep, we are. I think we're like exactly a third of the way there. So go ahead. Welcome aboard, folks. You guys are watching another episode of King Pilled. I'll get this stuff out of the way real quick. All the administrative stuff. My name is Matt. I am the most important host of all time, and occasionally I bring this other little pleb host on with me. The other guy, I call him Liberal Steve. That's a nickname I made up for him that I applied to him. And
I'm gonna, you go ahead. I'll be right back.
Okay. So do us a favor, like this video, especially. Let me mute Steven. Like this video, and then subscribe to our channel. Share the video. If you're listening to this on iTunes later on, then follow us there. Subscribe to the show there, and follow us around the internet. You can follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled, and do not follow Steven on Twitter at Messina Inc. And so, okay, as I was, still train. So, so what I was going to say is that in the past, like, we're very used to the way that we kind of look at the racial situation now, and it's kind of easy to just assume that's how it's always been, but it's been a kind of a process over time to develop our understandings of races as like distinct from each other. So it used to be that there was much broader categories, and then they've gradually carved them off into smaller and smaller racial groups. And so in the past, when the word I don't even want to say. I'm just going to say a word that starts with N. That it's the Spanish word for black. It's not the really bad one, but even that word there, I don't know how touchy they're going to be. So that word was a much broader distinguisher. And so people who fell under that category, it wasn't just African people. It was also Jews and Italians and even Irish people were all considered that word, because the word was really more just kind of like a catch-all for people who were not like Anglo-Caucasian. So it's you actually come from a background. You made the comparison to black families and talking to their kids about relating to the police and everything. There's actually a history there where that's basically how Italians were seen as well. And then somehow they just magically wound up being white. So they went from one catch-all term to another catch-all term. And they just aren't allowed to have their own category, I suppose. Let me get you unmuted here. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I thought would be a good designator for liberal Steve. If we just so I just go
That's
into character.
fantastic.
And like there were some characters that I used to have back in the day. I haven't done like actual liberal Steve in a while. But you know, I could see about getting back into it. My focus has been on other impressions that I'm crafting currently,
And
it's
they
been
are
a lot of
very,
fun. But I'm
very
gonna see if I
good.
can. Oh, it's pretty fun. I gotta admit, it's pretty fun.
Oh man.
But yeah, I think liberal Steve could make a comeback, and I'll just keep a pair of these blue light glasses handy, and just pop those on whenever I want to get into character. And I think I've got a more liberal Stevie pair of glasses, but. Yeah.
You have to
I
speak
knew.
with like a
I
little
think,
bit more nasally of a voice.
oh, it's obnoxious, man. I don't know. Like people might want that to go. It's more obnoxious than me usually. But yeah, no. You know, and I haven't really kept it a secret about the family history. You know, but it was always explained. You know, within the family that you know it was just there was a need for a justice system because the justice system as such just wasn't really cutting it. And so that's where Nonu came in to play. He was the justice system. So.
That's funny. It's kind of fascinating to watch the way that the formal state has kind of merged itself with organized crime in the past. Like organized crime, we don't talk really about the mafia and everything as much anymore, but that's not because they were destroyed so much as they were just incorporated into the existing state. All the different criminal organizations and stuff in the past just sort of went straight, which just means that they aligned their interests with the ruling state as it was, and then we don't really talk about them anymore. But like I mentioned in the show in the past, that it's just natural that eventually organized crime and the state are going to become one and the same because they need each other. The government needs to remain in existence as an institution. There has to have something that generates demand for it. So it needs organized crime, and then for organized crime to maintain their organization, their things have to remain crimes. So they need drugs to be outlawed. They need prostitution to be illegal. They need all these things to be illegal. Otherwise, they lose their industries. So it's just a matter of time that the two are gonna informally come together and start working as one entity, and that's basically where we are now. So anyways, so we've been going a little bit here, and now we can get into the bulk of the show. So I titled today The Political Philosophy of Jordan Peterson, Freedom in a Land of Tyrants. And the part of the reason I use Jordan Peterson is just because if you put Jordan Peterson in a video, then if you put his name there, then it's very, very good for SEO. So for those of you who showed up expecting like a deep explication of detailed explication
if
of
you'd like
Jordan.
to ask the first question, I think it would be timely to do so because you don't want to have a show that is absent of order. I was on Steven Crowder and he spent half the time dancing, so if you'd like to.
It's funny when you hear people do Jordan Peterson impressions. I'm hearing it a little bit in you. Yeah. There's a very, very close line between Jordan Peterson and Mrs. Doubtfire. It's very easy to fall into Mrs. Doubtfire from Jordan Peterson. That's funny. There's a couple of guys that on YouTube, I can't remember their names, but there's a couple of guys who do pretty good Jordan Peterson impressions. You should start cultivating that. That should be your new.
When I was listening to him in earnest like years ago, like I would do an actual. Now it's the caricature, unfortunately, because it just transcended doing like an actual impression, and it's crossed over to where it's a caricature. But yeah, I would. Oh gosh, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do it. It was decent. You know?
What we should do is that whenever we try to get someone on for an interview and we can't get them, I'll just interview you as the person. Just have you go into character.
You know what? Yeah, it would be fun to just let the show take a turn like that. That would be pretty good. You know.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, I've never tried a Vin, but hold on. I think I can kind of pull it off, especially if like without the hair.
Yeah.
You know. We got a similar head shape. Yeah, I could.
You got to kind of squint a little bit.
Yeah, I had a little squint going, you know, up here. I'll just do a hallucinogen or two. I'll just be constantly like, I'll be like a bizarre, like broke ass, like great value Vin Armani, where I don't quite get my own philosophies. So I've got like a magic hat and I'm pulling rabbits out of it, and I've got like the flower and I'm squirting water at the webcam. But I'm kind of a dumb fuck, and it breaks the laptop or whatever. It's like, yeah, man, magic. People need to be entertained right now. That's what it's all about for me.
You're like Vin Armani as the Joker.
Yes. Yeah, Vin's dumb fuck twin brother who's just trying to grift off of his fame. Yeah,
Oh, that's funny.
Vinny. I know it's the same
Vinny.
name, but like Vinny Armani.
That's what when he was on Wealth, Power, and Influence, that's what Jason called him at the beginning. Jason said, Vinny
Vinny.
Armani. And
No,
Ben
he
was
didn't.
like,
No, he
well,
didn't.
he was like,
Vinny?
nobody's ever really called me Vinny before, but you can if you want.
That's real.
It was great. Yeah. Go watch the very beginning of it.
Dude, the goosebumps I have. Oh my god. Pena Hannah right there. Wow.
Oh,
Wow. Amazing.
okay. Anyway,
Okay.
so
Jordan
the
Peterson,
reason
I'm sorry.
the reason why
Okay.
I am starting with Jordan Peterson is because what I wanted to get into is kind of zoomed out a little bit from where we usually are. We usually when we talk about stuff on the show, we kind of talk about a lot of like politics specific and everything. But today on Wealth, Power, and Influence with Jason Stapleton, we talked about a subject that I wanted to go into it a little more. I had more stuff I wanted to say about it, and since we have our show, we can talk about whatever we want. That's what I'm going to do. So this last week we had our 90-day sprint with Jason's company. So with Amy and I, and then Sarah, who also works with us, and then Jason. We met at Jason's house, and we talked about as like our new plans as we're moving forward, as we're developing all the different infrastructure and everything for what Jason ultimately wants to do. And we really are focused on refining and crystallizing his brand and what he talks about wanting to touch 1 million people's lives and how exactly we want to do that. And so we've got some really cool plans. I don't want to reveal everything, obviously, because it'll be his thing to do in his own time. But as we talked about these ideas, it was really good to kind of lay out a path forward and a clear to start building energy behind a clear movement. Because I think that a lot of people, the people who might be inclined to watch this show, so someone who would be libertarian or conservative or something like that, there's this kind of roiling bundle of energy of people that are kind of like, we want better than whatever exists today, but we have no idea how to get it. And there's all kinds of different theories and strategies and stuff that people are putting forward, and they tend to associate them with an ideology. They associate them with some kind of ism. So, anarcho-capitalism, or libertarianism, or communism, or some type of ism. And part of the reason that we do that is because it's easier for our minds to attach itself to an idea when that idea has something like a tangible form associated with it. And there was something that I came across where something sort of clicked right after I put out the title for what today's show was going to be. I was just kind of scrolling through Twitter, and someone, Lo-Fi Republican, tweeted out a couple of screenshots, and he said, "R.I.P. Karl Marx, I know you would have loved this thread." And someone tweeted, "Genuinely, if communism was established, or whatever your preferred anti-capitalist method, what would you like to do?" And here's a couple of answers. One of them, this guy says, garden, care for animals, make and prepare food, and write novels, and hopefully find some irregular tasks with a gentle learning curve that contributes and connects me to my community. How sweet. Then another one was, get a horse, some survival supplies, and writing supplies, and go live as a vagabond, relishing in the beauties of nature and writing poetry and songs to put this beauty into words and melody. I will also probably play a lot of D&D and learn how to paint. And then this last one was probably jack off and get free HRT. So of those options there, like I looked at it and I was like, there's nothing stopping those people from doing that right now. Like someone has convinced them that these sorts of things are only possible if communism is established. But there's nothing to stop these people from doing that today. If your goal is, as the first guy said, to get a horse, some survival supplies and writing supplies, and go live as a vagabond, relishing in the beauties of nature and writing poetry and songs to put this beauty into words and melody, go do that. Like what is it that's holding him back? Something has convinced him that he can't do this until communism is established. The only one here that'd be kind of questionable would be the getting free HRT. But even that, you just got to think outside the box a little bit. You're not trying to get free HRT. You're trying to get someone else to pay for your HRT. That's all you're saying. So, just got to be a little more clever. But as I was thinking, like, it's easy for people to be like, oh, what a bunch of morons, and dunk on them because they're stupid commies. And they are stupid commies. But the non-communist realms are full of all this exact same type of thinking that, because the government is here, I can't do what I want to do. I can't, there's whatever I wanted to do with my life. I can't do that until, we have to abolish the state. And only then can I live the life that I want to live. And that's not, obviously, depending on what you're wanting to do, that may be the case. But by and large, for the vast majority of people, if the government was abolished tomorrow, they would have no idea what to do with themselves. They would be like, oh, my entire identity was wrapped up in the government. I was my, who I am, everything that I know, everything that I'm interested in is all wrapped up in the government. And without the government, I'm lost. I have nowhere to go. I have nothing to do. That type of person needs the government to exist. They claim that they want to be beyond the government, that they want to get rid of the government, but they don't, because they wouldn't know what to do with themselves if they did. If you have an actual identity, if you have an actual set of goals that you want to accomplish, then you'll do that whether the government's there or not. The government is just a constant. When I was talking with Jason this morning, when we were figuring out what we were going to talk about for this morning's show, I said it's kind of like a snowstorm. It's like, say we got trapped in a land of perpetual snowstorms and the snow just never went away. We're living in LA and it's just always inches and feet of snow every single day. And if this just became the new way that things are, you wouldn't go out doing podcasts raging against the snow. Someone might, but someone that did that would be seen as a goofball. It's like, well, the snow exists. So what are you going to do now? No amount of yelling at it is going to make it go away. So treat the snow as a constant and then do whatever you're going to do. And the funny thing is that when you start doing that with respect to the government, when you just treat the government as a constant and you're like, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do, and I'm going to ensure that the government can't stop me from doing that, then suddenly, as the government starts to have less and less of an impact on you, you start seeing a path forward. That maybe this is actually a route through which we can evolve past this regime. And so that's part of what, with Wealth, Power, and Influence, with Jason's show, he's focused particularly, especially on entrepreneurship and on marketing and building brands and teaching people how to, teaching people who are already inclined to be an entrepreneur, how to be better at being an entrepreneur. And what I've realized is that his principles that he's talking about, principles of persuasion and understanding how to market and how to sell to people, you can apply these in any different realm. You can apply them across all different ventures. All it comes down to is just how do people tick? What makes people tick? How do they make decisions? And if I have something that I want other people to buy into, how can I communicate it to them, and how can I make it seem appealing and attractive to them? And so we've talked about this on the show before, that people aren't interested in freedom. They actively don't want freedom. I saw something on Twitter. I don't remember what it was. Someone was saying something stupid about vaccine passports, and there was a major libertarian account that responded and was like, "Oh, you must not believe in freedom, huh?" And I was like, "No, they don't. They explicitly don't believe in freedom." But and trying to meet them on that ground is never going to get you anywhere. If you want people to desire the things that you want them to desire, you have to model them in your own life. You have to make it seem appealing by pursuing it yourself. So if you claim that you own yourself, if you claim to be someone who embodies self-ownership, but you can't even get out of your job at Best Buy, then it's a joke, obviously, but the point remains that if you aren't applying your principles to your own life, if you aren't taking control of your own life and embracing the life that you want to live, then everything that you say about like getting rid of the state or whatever, it just is going to fall on deaf ears. It's not going to connect with people. So this is where Jordan Peterson comes in, because Jordan Peterson, his whole thing that people have made into a meme is clean your room. But and like a lot of these things that have become cliche or that people have just kind of turned into a meme or a joke, it's sort of like they lose their punch a little bit. But that doesn't make them any less real. This last weekend, Amy and I went to Hobby Lobby and just walked around just because it's a wonderful place. And I was sitting there, like, I was finding all these different plaques and stuff. And I just like, oh, I love this saying, or I love this one, or this one's awesome. And we wound up buying a couple of them. One of them, it said life doesn't have to be perfect for it to be beautiful, or something like that. It's very white girl, like, something some chick would put on her Starbucks coffee mug or something, it's very, very cliche. But I don't care if it's cliche. Like, that's a powerful concept, that life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. And people have this tendency to just pursue like you have to get the exact perfect right thing, and if it's not exactly right, then it just can't be accepted. But I'm reminded of the concept of the Tao. And I don't know a whole lot about it. I just kind of have briefly looked at it, read about it a little bit, and I've heard other people talk about it. But I'm compelled by this idea of the way that there's just like the reality is flowing forward. From our perspective, time is more or less linear. And if you zoom out far enough, you realize that it's not linear. That there's a cycle to it, but when we're zoomed in our day-to-day life, we have this feeling of linear time that we're progressing through, and there's the universe and reality are just flowing forward. And you have a choice. You can either say, I'm not happy with how things are and I'm going to fight against them. And you can introduce all sorts of tension and resistance and stress and trouble to your life. Or you can just accept the world for what it is. As you encounter it, just accept it. That the world is what the world is. All the troubles and trials and tribulations and all those things, they're all constants. They're gonna be there. You're never going to escape stress and difficulty and anxiety and tension and whatever else. So rather than trying to escape them, just embrace them and build through them. And as you do that, as you build through all these sorts of hindrances and hurdles, as you just press through them and use them as an opportunity to make yourself better, pretty soon you realize that you're developing what Nassim Taleb calls anti-fragility, where the more trial and tribulation you go through, the more capable of going through trial and tribulation you become. And you don't get broken down or stuck with whatever seems to be holding you back. There was a story that Jason talked about on the show today about it's like a lockbox place down in Beverly Hills or something like that. It's basically a place where you can show up completely anonymously and you can buy a lockbox and store whatever you want there, and they don't know your name, they don't care, and obviously it's a haven for criminality. And so the feds ended up busting them, and they didn't just bust the people who own the place. They went through and opened every single box and confiscated everything that was in it. So there's a guy who's suing them on the basis of the Fourth Amendment, saying that, I have a right against unlawful search and seizure. And if you don't have a warrant specifically with probable cause to suspect me of having committed a crime, then you can't take my stuff. And, good luck to the guy. Like, I think he's probably got a pretty good case. But I see libertarians in general who think that the way forward is by attacking the state head on, by going at it on its face and mounting. So they have this idea, like, we have to mount a big enough force to overpower the state. We have to get enough people on our side that it's such a significant social force that the state has to bend the knee to us. And it's just the worst possible strategy. There is not a worse approach that you could take. You would be better off going home and sitting on your thumbs and not doing anything than to go and take the state on head on. Because the surest way to get the worst version of the state is by attacking it head on. And a lot of these people, the reason that they're so eager to throw themselves into a venture like this is because they have nothing else to show for themselves. They don't have a life apart from their political activism. And they like to make fun of the professional activists on the left. But the thing is, those people are actually accomplishing something because they know how the game works. So, the people
even if they don't know how the game works, even if those people on the left don't know, like there's something that a lot of those people, I mean, just addictive to win. A lot of those people just see a winning team, and whether they realize it consciously or not, they're just like, oh yeah, that works.
Right.
And there's some reward there of winning, and it satisfies me emotionally. So the libertarians are drawn to the, you know, I don't want to break any news here, but from my observation, it seems like a lot of libertarians just really like to complain. And so actually it's almost like, I don't know if they want to win. Because like, actually when you're giving that, you know, what would you do if communists, I was wondering if, you know, if libertarians had their druthers, like what they would do. If they couldn't complain about, you know, the state all day, what would they do? I think that's what they actually want to be doing. So a lot of the people in the social justice front are getting satisfied emotionally, you know, by feeling like they're, you know, fighting for something good or whatever. And then they have the added bonus that they almost always win, but that's nothing they're doing.
Right.
It's just, yeah, I mean, it would be like, it's like running with the wind, basically.
Right. Exactly.
And so, you know, libertarians kind of see that, or anyone on the right, or, you know, they get the idea, well, we should just do what these other people that we, you know, totally disagree with are doing. We'll do the same thing, but opposite. And man, you're going to find out real quick. It's just like you doing the same thing, but opposite is going to have actually the opposite impact that you're anticipating or hoping for.
It's like it's like they're on a river, like they're floating down a river,
right.
And the lefties are the ones who are like jumping in and like pulling the boat along in the current with them, and they're going with the current. And like libertarians or people who are pursuing limited government, largely speaking, it's like they're trying to get enough people to jump out in the water and swim upstream and pull the boat with them. It's like you're never gonna be successful. It's never gonna happen.
Not happening.
If you want the boat to go a different direction, you need to build a different river. And until you've built a different river, it's gonna keep going the same direction that it's going. And it's headed to a waterfall. Everyone's gonna get launched off this waterfall. So you can keep going with them and keep trying to pull the boat until you're headed off the waterfall, or you can just jump off, swim to shore, and go build a different river. But in order to do that, you have to start with your own life. You can't start at the federal level. You have to start. This is where Jordan Peterson comes in. Clean your own room. Brian McClanahan says, I think he says, like, think locally, act locally. And locally isn't even, when he says it, he's typically talking like politically, like in your hometown or something like that. But I would go even more local than that. I would say in your own home. Like, start in your own home. Get your own life in order. If you're a young guy who like, if you're young and single, get a wife. Like, find a wife and have kids. Start there. Because until you've done that, I mean, I'm like right on the cusp of it. I've been married for 3 years, and my son's 6 months old, and so like I'm just barely getting a taste of it. And I can already tell that it's completely transformative. Like I'm going to be a 100% different person in a couple of years than I was a couple years ago. I already am a completely different person than I was a couple years ago. You don't know who you are or what you're doing until you've progressed to this point. And if you're already at that point, then it's your responsibility to make sure that your family is immune from whatever's going to come down the stream at you before you start trying to fix other people's families. You got to take care of your own family before you can take care of everybody else's. And if this is where people start focusing, this is where there's lots of common ground with the manosphere and with these other groups that aren't necessarily explicitly political, but they're like political adjacent. And they're focused on the things that actually matter. They're focused on family. They're focused on their church. They're focused on on their business or their own way of generating an income. This is where the message of wealth, power, and influence is that you need to be able to control the source of your income, and you need to make that income mobile. If you haven't done those things, if you're bound to a geographical area and you don't have the ability to pull up stakes and peace out if shit hits the fan, then your concern isn't the structure of the government. Your concern is in your own life. Once you've solved your own life, once you've figured out where your life is going personally, once you've got that foundation laid, then you can get concerned with political activism. But now I'm seeing a lot of people who are trying to jump on board this political activism train, and it's not going to go the direction they think it is. The people who are doing the right thing here are people like Vin Armani. What he's doing, where he is building in I was waiting for that. Magic. Vin is building like the movement of the future that will actually change something. Tony
Video only.
Yeah.
Video only. Got to find us on Odyssey, baby.
Yep. Find us on Odyssey.
The performative brilliance.
Tony here says Dave said he sees the LP as the most effective platform for messaging, not necessarily for taking power. He's wrong. Wrong. Like
we've,
that.
We've given the spiel on that.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. It's that doing the thing that you think it's doing.
It's the most effective platform for a specific type of message, and that's not the message that he's rolling with. It's just, and Dave is. I don't fault Dave for getting involved in all of this, but because I think he's someone who has done a lot of what's necessary. He's put himself in the position where if he's going to get involved in political activism, he's someone who can do that. I think he can afford to do that. The problem is that he's promising something he can't possibly fulfill, and that's getting a lot of people involved with him who would be much better off focused on other pursuits that will yield much more productive results for them. The future of politics, the future of the government, the future of whatever sort of legal infrastructure is on this is within this country or wherever we wind up, wherever the world is, it hasn't been built yet. It doesn't exist. So if you're trying to tear down the existing structure, you don't have anything to replace it with. So you're just going to get a worse version of the existing structure. People need to be focused on building the governance structures of the future. Once you start focusing on that, then you can have the conversation that actually matters, which is what would that look like? What do we need to have? What sort of technologies or institutions or people or groups or organizations? What sort of assets do we need to create the type of stable society that will yield the liberty that we want? Those things don't exist. There's nothing. You're striking out into the wild west without like civilizing it first, without going and like beating back the land and carving out a new society. And so right now, that's just a domain for people who are willing to take on that sort of risk tolerance. So you need to build your risk tolerance. You need to build your capacity to survive, whatever's coming down the pike. Because the next several years aren't going to get more stable, I don't think. I think that we're just on the cusp of how things are going to be. And there's a lot of people who are all gung-ho about political activism who don't even have the capacity to survive lockdowns. And I sympathize with them because this is what we've been trained to think. Like these communists, they've been trained to believe that to have the life that they want, they have to first destroy the system and establish communism. This is the way that these sort of toxic brain viruses work. They these sorts of movements are only successful if you get more people involved. So they have this constant desire for more people, more people, more people. Doesn't matter how many people we have, it's not enough people. They got to keep pulling more people in. And so they woo people with promises of utopia, and they get people to abandon work that could actually do something for them and to go join on with a political movement that's never going to do anything for them. And so they have to promise them the moon. They'll never be able to deliver. And by the time a lot of these people realize that it's never going to deliver for them, that they're never going to achieve the utopia that they want, it's going to be too late. And so we need people who are willing to actually start building, to abandon the political game, as it were, and start building the society of the future. This one's collapsing, this one's fracturing, and it's coming down. And we need a movement of people who are willing to start to build with a longer time horizon. We need low time preference people. This is what libertarians claim to be. They claim to be the low time preference people. They need to start showing it. They need to demonstrate that low time preference and start building structures that will last. Once you start having that conversation and you start looking at the world from that lens, okay, what sorts of things last? How do you build a stable society? What does it take in order to have a stable, cohesive society where everyone's willing to follow the non-aggression principle, where everyone's even willing to follow the Constitution, whatever standard you set? What's the predicate for that society to be able to thrive in those conditions? That's a completely different question from what's wrong with the state or why is the state bad.
How medical misinformation-y do you have to be offering medical misinformation? Because I think we got an episode nuked for medical misinformation when we didn't even talk about anything medical.
I think we said something about vaccine passports, and I don't know what it was.
No, I just if you look at what has been going on prescriptively for this trying to tap dance here, this devastating illness that's been going around for the past year, it kind of does. If you look at the sort of lifestyle that it reinforces, it kind of does just give meaning to a very vapid way of life that is inhabited by a particular set of annoying suburban people who politically have ruined everything over the course of decades. But no, I mean, really, like even as far as you're good in your house, right? So you, your husband, and your kids. Not that I'm thinking of a particular gender and a particular race of people who have just really screwed everything up. No, but the nuclear family, in the most immediate sense, right? It has reinforced that to the point of just like, you don't even want to see grandma and grandpa. You know what I mean? That's a very dangerous proposition. You can be in the house with your spouse and your kids, and you can certainly go to whatever big box store you want to, and you can order Grubhub, and you can do this and you can do that. But it's just that is the kind of existence that, just by chance, it seems that, the prescription for dealing with this deadly disease has favored, right? And so, okay, if we take a look at what is not that, right? What is not that is a group of people who have taken care of their families in the way that you beautifully described moments ago. But not just maybe one family, maybe a few families that all kind of have their stuff together a little bit, and and maybe in some kind of proximity to one another, where they can kind of take that next step and not just take care of their immediate family, but start kind of building towards a community, right? And so even then, if you have a community, money kind of starts to be a little bit less important if you start to have your bases covered, because, I mean, I don't know how it is with people's families or whatever, but I mean, you take care of each other, and you can find ways to do it without money. So if everyone kind of has something to offer and you start kind of building this very small community, I think that is what it starts to look like. And then, I think that I don't know who's there and who's doing that already. I'm sure it's happening, but I think like as you get to that sort of next step of having a small community of self-sufficient people who are all on sort of the same page, I think the future starts to unveil itself before you. That's what my thought is. To someone in the comments asked what it looked like. I think that's probably what it looks like.
Yes.
And what's really funny about you're talking about Jason, if I just go back to that, a few hours ago I was looking around, sunny, nice, that always helps the outlook, but I just had the thought, it's like, if I made roughly 10 to 20 times the amount of what I do with photography and video, my life would be pretty good.
So it's that, I mean, it's just a math problem.
Just an order of magnitude. That's all it is.
But I mean, when you look at it that way, that's like, you can look at on one hand, how much does it cost to destroy the state? Like,
yeah, right.
Like in upfront resources required to take it on, and then in the long term, like the takedown of it. But then that, like, so like if you're that's on one hand, that's path A. Path B is how much does it cost to make yourself immune to whatever the state does? Now, yes. when you frame it that way, suddenly it's like, okay, well, that doesn't seem like that much. If you're just trying to say, what do I need to do to become independently wealthy? When you look at it that way, it's like, holy crap, how am I going to do that? But when you look at it the other way, that the alternative is just to be the bitch of the state. Like those are your two options. So if you start from the path of whatever the state is, however it's structured, however it's organized, however tyrannical it is, like we live in a land of wannabe tyrants. Everyone in the country wants to be a tyrant. They all want to impose their values on someone else. So what's the price of lifting yourself out of that fray and just making yourself financially independent and then culturally independent? Now, ultimately, the best way to do that, like you say, is going to be with some sort of an organization. Like there's strength in numbers. You want to have a community. This is how tribes form. Individual people, like we're getting to where everything is becoming so chaotic that it's no longer a civilization. This is why people create civilizations, because like nature in its default state is chaotic. Anything can happen anywhere at all times. And so people come together and they form civilizations and create order out of the chaos to protect themselves, to disperse tasks and automate some processes so that we can improve our gathering our resources. So, different people, you get specialization, different people are good at different tasks. So then you have methods of exchange to toss those things around, and all of this, you need trust. You need to have trust, you need to have incentives for people to all participate for the good of everyone else. Like when you start describing the dynamics that you would need to make a free market system work and the dynamics that you would need to make a communist system work, they're basically the same thing. You need to have trust, and you need to have people who are willing to work really hard for the good of the community. When you have those things together, then it doesn't matter what economic system it is. It doesn't matter what the structure of the government is. Those are the things that you can build any economic system on. You can build any government on. Then it just so happens that if you want to sustain them, only specific structures will sustain those things over the course of time as generations pass. But those are different questions. It all has to start with a community of people who are willing to look out for one another, and they're willing to work hard, and they're willing to and they want to build a community of trust. Like those are the things that you have to have. And without them, you're just we're getting to the point where as all those bonds are breaking, the society is becoming completely chaotic. There's this concept of anarcho-tyranny, which is where a government that, let's see, how'd you put this? So a government is an institution with a monopoly on power in a given area. Because they've taken this monopoly of power, they are responsible for crimes that happen within their domain. By definition, like they're responsible for prosecuting and taking care of it and everything. So if it's happening, if those crimes are happening, it's the responsibility of the state. states as they're starting to go through their decline period, they reach a point where things that should be crimes are not prosecuted, and things that should not be crimes are prosecuted. Everything becomes chaotic, and you're seeing this in areas like the Bay Area now, where they're like theft is not a crime. It's like not prosecuted whatsoever. People are getting their cars broken into, they're shitting on the sidewalk, they're just shoplifting right and left. None of it will be prosecuted whatsoever. But if you call someone by the wrong gender, you might get arrested. Like, so this is anarcho-tyranny. And it's basically returning us to a state of chaos where there is no civilization. There's a whole bunch of people and there's a bunch of structures and institutions, but it's not civilized. It's the furthest thing from civilized. So like, we need people to build structure out of the chaos, to build order, to bring order out of the chaos. And as you build that, you start realizing the things that you need in order to have that structure. You have to have hierarchies. You have to have stable hierarchies. You have to have trust. And above all, you have to have a common value system, a common ethic that everyone is plugged into. So in essence, you need a religion. Like, you need to have a revival of religion that everyone in a region is all invested in. So I don't know exactly what this is going to look like going forward. That's exactly why I'm saying, if we knew what it was going to look like, then we could actually try to implement something politically, but we don't even know what it's going to look like. So trying to pursue a political solution is just tilting at windmills. If you want to generate something productive for the future, you have to start generating something productive for the future. And if you haven't gotten your own life figured out, if you haven't made yourself financially mobile, and if you don't control the source of your income, then you're never going to be able to do that. So, I mean, this is the focus of Wealth, Power, and Influence. This is the focus of Jason's brand. And on King Pilled here, we focus more on the politics and the religion and the philosophy and everything, but ultimately that's our same goal. Our same goal is to create a community of people who value the same things that we do. And at the beginnings, maybe that community, we're all young people here who are just kind of getting our feet under us in the world. But as this community builds and grows, it's the only difference between just like a social media group and a hedge fund is just the number of the relative wealth of the people involved. So if we start now and we start building today, we start innovating, start creating the solutions for tomorrow, there's a tortoise and a hare thing where all the political people are all going to launch themselves at the LP. They're like the hare that starts sprinting at the very beginning. And then here we are off to the side, just kind of steadily plodding along as the tortoises, but we're the ones building for the long term. We're the ones building families, building businesses, building communities that are ultimately going to create the foundation for the future of governance in this country. So that's obviously I use Jordan Peterson as a little bit of shameless SEO boosting, but that is basically the philosophy of Jordan Peterson. It's start with yourself under control. Once you do that, then start looking to the world. The rest of the world, the popular culture right now, gets everything exactly backwards. They say that you can't have peace and prosperity unless you solve everyone else's problems first. Everyone has to be engaged in the process of solving everyone else's problems, and nobody's engaged in the process of solving their own. And this is where you get Ayn Rand, where Ayn Rand talks about the necessity of self-interest, of being self-interested. You have to solve your own problems, because if you're not solving your own problems, no one else is going to solve your problems for you. They're going to pretend to, they're going to try to, but no one actually is. If you want to solve your problems, you have to solve them. And once you've solved them, then you're equipped to help other people solve their problems. That was basically kind of all that I had on my mind today. We've gone a little bit, let's see, not even an hour yet. Did you have anything else you were thinking of, Stephen?
No, I do see some of the, and I think we've probably talked about it before, but, kind of just seeing some of the energy that's getting, pushed into, libertarian communities. And I guess, for people that I agree with, it's nice to see that, if I'm being a little bit more generous than I usually am today. But, I just think at the end of the day, if you're getting people whipped up, what are you getting them whipped up for? You're inserting a lot of emotion. With libertarians, there's always a lot of hyperbolic language. And especially, when you get like more kind of this, we're going to be in your face attitude. You're just inserting emotion into a situation. Emotion's real dumb, which is to say, like, it's not like, logic is so superior to emotion. It's not even that. Just that it's a rudderless quality, just emotion. That's why you can be. Well, all right, we won't go into how it turns into pickup artist shit real quick. But I think, okay, you put together if you can. I'm sure you did. But basically, it's like, okay, where does emotion go? Because ultimately, it's like, okay, we're gonna fight vaccine passports. That's great. All right, what are you gonna do? If there's not an actual plan, I don't know. I just see that this always sort of bottlenecks into people just kind of putting themselves out there on social media in a way that is just not beneficial, counterproductive. You know what I mean? It's just like if I don't know, get you whipped up on some libertarian podcasts, but if it boils down to the end result is you kind of just talking about guns on the internet, you're just fulfilling the caricature of the enemy. That these everyone that you don't like is painting you as, and and it just gets the articles written, that slowly will turn the term libertarian or ANCAP or whatever into Proud Boys, like we've been saying. So, I don't know, for people who have influence out there, I think there's some responsibility for to maybe step back and examine what good all of that is doing, getting people fired up, unless there's a real concrete path. I think you got to take a look at it, but it's just the idea of, I don't know. There's so many. That's why I think everyone should do jiu-jitsu for like a year or two, just because like this attitude of we're going right at Anderson Silva, it starts to just like make way more sense about why you wouldn't want to do that, 10 years ago or whatever. But you know what I mean? It's just, you can understand that things are a little bit more intricate than that. And, just the idea of, we're going to get people fired up, or you hear people talk about fighters that he's going to go right at him. He's going to really push the pace, or, some abstract. It's like, okay, well, when he's pushing this pace, what is he going to do with it?
Yeah.
Is pace like a safe that he's going to hit him over the head with? Because like, if he's not going to, unless he's going to do that, his pace means, very little. So it's just, there has to be an actual like game plan.
Like if you're going to mount you think of it in warfare terms, if you're going to mount a head-on assault, if you're going to charge the machine gun nest of the enemy, then you better either have the numbers to just overwhelm them and
you better go right at it,
or you need to have some sort of thing to protect you from machine gun nests. But there's this fantastic conversation between Curtis Yarvin and Michael Anton on Jack Murphy's show. I mentioned it last time.
That was a line. Are you going to say the line that
Which
you
one?
might say the line that I loved?
Which one?
I was going to say it when I was talking. Man, my man said, "Don't just do something, stand there."
Yes. Don't just do something, stand there. Yes, because the people who are doing something within the political context are the people who are going to be targeted. They're the people who are going. There's this headline I just saw here from the AP: vaccine skepticism runs deep among white evangelicals in U.S. You can see. You can see what's being.
Are they trying to do something there?
Right. Like you could see where this is headed. That there's a specific group of people who are going to be framed for vaccine skepticism and
racism.
Right. They've got the model built up. They just have to direct the mob. They just have to name the target and direct the mob. And the people who are out there saying, hey, it's me, pick me. I'm the target. Go after me. Yep. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones who are going to be targeted. So if you're going to do that, that's fine. But you better have the means to survive that. And a lot of these people don't. They've gotten used to, online isn't real life. There's online life and then there's IRL. And this stuff isn't IRL. It's just this stuff's going to get IRL real fast. Yeah. And the people who are putting themselves out there and don't have a plan are the ones who are going to pay the ultimate price.
Yeah, if you agree with anything that Matthew and I say in any capacity, you are a prey animal.
Yes.
Like that's it.
And you
like,
need to be seen that. You need to see yourself that way.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with your personality or your character traits or it's just like if you zooming out, it's just you're a fucking bunny rabbit. 99%, I'm sure there might be an exception out there or whatever, but man, unless you got a gazillion $billion or some kind of protection of influence somehow, it's just like, yeah, I mean, man, you're a bunny rabbit.
But here's the great thing. You don't as the bunny rabbit, you don't have to be faster than the cheetah, you just have to be faster than the other bunny rabbits. And magic. He can mute himself. You don't have to be faster than all the other. You don't have to be faster than the cheetah that's chasing you. You just have to be faster than the other bunny rabbits. And you also have to be the bunny rabbit who isn't like going out of his way to draw the attention of the cheetah first. You don't want to be the one who ends up directly in the target. But anyway, so there's this thread by Scott Adams that I wanted to share because this is just absolutely like sometimes. I mean, the internet is just amazing. Like you can get a single Twitter thread that is more valuable than a college degree, and this is one of them. Scott said, "Here's a reframe that will change some people's lives forever. Your mind is the outcome of genetics, traumas, and hacks. If you don't learn to hack or program your own brain, the default is that you are little more than genes and traumas." So what's interesting is that the people who say that this is a very common progressive trope, lefty trope, that you're just a product of your trauma or something, or they'll say the reason I am the way I am is because this is what either it's my genes or it's what I've been through. It's the way I've been scarred, and I have PTSD now, or whatever other thing that they attribute their issues to. What they're saying then is that they don't have the ability to hack their own brain. So all they are is just their genes and their traumas. So then, so everyone starts with genetics and traumas, and you have to learn the hacks. So an example of a brain hack is education. It's a conscious choice to physically alter your brain via learning. Another hack is intelligent skill stacking. Associating self-rewards with habits you want to deepen is a hack. This is one reason why I think people like Venn and Curtis Yarvin, why they seem to get the world so well. And it's because they are programmers. They're like computer programmers, they're software developers. When it's like people who operate on that level, they're naturally inclined to see the code in reality. And so they can translate from computer programming to cognitive programming really well, and all the principles are basically the same. So associating self-rewards with habits you want to deepen is a hack. Learning to reframe your experiences is a hack. Learning to see reality as subjective is a hack. Learning to avoid emotion pollution from entertainment products is a hack. Reframing sleep as a skill that can be learned is a hack. So people will say, I just don't sleep well. I've just never slept well. You're programming your brain to never sleep well. But if you can reframe that and you can say, this is a skill that I can develop, and you set your mind to the process of developing that skill, pretty soon you'll sleep fantastically. You just have to reprogram your brain. You have to hack your brain. Learning to put things in context is a hack. Practicing optimism is a hack. If you make it your system or your habit to routinely learn and test new hacks, you become the author of your own mind. And because your experience of reality is subjective, the author of your own experience. So if you don't like your experience of life, this is what Jason always says. He says it's your fault. If you don't like where you are in life, it's your fault. You're the one who put yourself there. And people say, oh, well, so-and-so did such and such. Yeah, but you're the one who controlled the way you responded to it. You're the one ultimately where you are today as a product of the decisions that you've made. And if you want to be somewhere else, just make different decisions. This applies directly to this whole political thing. If you don't like the role that the government has in your life today, then put yourself in a different position. I said this on the show this morning, that people like to talk shit to Jason and I about living in California. And they'll be like, oh, all the taxes. It's so expensive to live there, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, it's expensive to live here because it's nice. It's worth it. You have to pay more. We pay more to live here because it's worth it, because we can. And when you frame it that way, then it's completely different. If you think, oh man, it's just this oppressive tax burden here, it's so expensive, then it drags you down, it bums you out. But if you think, yeah, I pay more, like, someone who drives a BMW pays more for his car than somebody who drives a Toyota, because the BMW is worth it to him. So he's willing to pay more. We live in California because we're willing to pay what it costs to live in California because it's worth it to us. So if you start framing these things in your mind this way, you realize that reality is subjective. You've been programmed to think about things in a certain way, but you can reprogram yourself to think about those things in a different way. So those people with communism, they've been programmed to think, I can't go live in the woods and paint and play my guitar all day until we have communism. But if somebody told them, you can go do that right now, here's how you do it. First this, then this, then this, then this. Ta-da, you now live in the woods and you play your guitar and paint all day. Then you would find out whether they actually wanted that. Because once someone gave them the map for how to get there, if they don't take those steps, it means they don't actually want that. So when people are describes to you how you can go live the life that he lives on Saipan. If you claim that that's the life that you want, but you aren't taking the steps to get you there, you've got an issue with your brain because your actions don't fit what you think your actions should be. You have to start acting. If you believe that you own yourself, you have to start acting like you do. You can't just blame the government for your position in life. If you think that there's this American mentality that like every American is it's like every American is naturally a millionaire who's just temporarily fallen on hard times or something like that. And Americans look at themselves that way, like, oh, if it wasn't for XYZ, I'd be a millionaire. Well, XYZ is there, so why don't you just be a millionaire anyways? Or whatever else it is that you want. Whether you want to be a millionaire, whether you want to, have lots of kids, or whatever your thing is that you want, you just make the decisions yourself and you go get it. So Adams ended his thread with, be the hack, not the trauma. So your genes you can't change your genes. You can't change the traumas you've been through, but you can hack your way beyond them. And I think that if people claim that they want liberty, you can have liberty today. You can have all the liberty that you want. There's just a price for it. So you have to figure out what that price is and then just pay it. And then you get it. Then you have it. You don't need to get rid of the government to have freedom. It's available to you. It just costs something. So you have to figure out what it costs, pay it, and then you'll have it. And then ultimately, if enough of us do that together, then we can pool our resources and we can buy freedom for anybody else who wants it as well. And I think once you start looking at it that way, once you realize that the question of government is an engineering problem, not a moral problem, then we'll get enough people that are thinking this way, and then this movement might actually make a difference. You good to go?
I co-sign everything you said.
Deal. All right, awesome. Folks. Thanks for joining us for another episode. This has been King Pilled. I am Matt. You can follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. And Steven doesn't want you to follow him on Twitter. So
please don't.
Don't follow him on Twitter.
But I can't speak for Liberal Steve.
Oh, Liberal Steve. You can follow Liberal Steve on Twitter at Messina Inc. But not Steven. Don't follow him on Twitter.
Right.
And then do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our Odyssey channel will be coming up soon. I'll be letting people know about that. We're also going to be actually creating a community where you guys can come hang out with us and talk with us, a supporting listeners group of sorts. We're working on some of that stuff in the background, and you should have more information about it soon. And next episode, we are going to have our first sponsor. So that will be fun. Anyways, thanks, folks. We'll talk to you on Thursday, sometime 12:30 or 1 o'clock Pacific. Toodles.